Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 41 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. Today we're going to be talking about letting go of the past, how it's going to save you, and especially in pertinence to relationships, losing loved ones, and failures in life. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, first and foremost, I would like to say that everyone has experience with failure. Okay, that's probably the number one place where people feel, sad about their past, and they struggle to move on. And one thing that I think would completely change your life is if you just locked in on the current moment, the present. Because the truth is, everything that's in the past, you can't really change it, right? It's a fixed reality. So whatever you do from this point on is the only thing that really matters. And that's the interesting thing about the human mind is it's always focusing on what it can't control, which is really crazy but fascinating at the same time. What can you really do about the stuff that happened in the past? Nothing. Right?
Yeah.
And what's the point of dwelling on it? At the end of the day, we just think about, oh my God, I wish that things would have gone differently. But you can't really change that, can you?
Absolutely. And it's like there's kind of a saying, it's you don't die or you don't drown by falling in water, you drown by staying in water. Right? So there's a chance that you'll fail and you'll fall and you'll falter. Well, no, not a chance. There's a 100% guaranteed, unavoidable reality that you are going to make mistakes in your life. Absolutely, it is completely unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
The choice is whether you learn from the mistakes or you continue to get hurt by them. And it's literally from Lion King, right? The way I see it, either you can run from the past or you can learn from it. Do you not know what scene I'm talking about
Is
right
that the clip where he smacks him with a stick?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful scene, I think, especially for a kids movie. I feel like kids' movies have so much brilliance.
You should explain that for the people that don't know this.
Oh, okay. First off, if you haven't watched Lion King,
I think that everyone's watched The Lion King. It's just that they might not remember
that's
the
such a
specific
famous
clip.
clip, though.
I guess.
Okay, but the clip is basically I don't know his name. What's his name?
Rafiki?
Yeah, Rafiki smacks Simba in the head, and then he says, Simba's like, "Ow, what was that for?" And then, Rafiki is like,
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's in the past. And he's like, yeah, but it still hurt. And he's like, oh, yeah, the past can hurt. But the way I see it, you can either run from it or you can learn from it. And then he swings again, except this time, Simba dodges it. And he's like, what? There you go. Something like that. Maybe we'll toss up the clip. I don't know.
Point is, you can learn from the past. And that's
Exactly.
actually so crazy, man. I miss how inspirational and amazing movies used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think that it's because all the ideas are used up. I just think that people have become more obsessed with the profit aspect of making movies
Absolutely.
than the actual interest in making movies.
Like, think about The Good Dinosaur. That's got to be one of the best movies I've ever watched.
That was such a gas movie.
And I remember watching it the first time. I cried so much watching that movie. That movie was so sad. But one scene that really stuck with me was when he's talking to one of like the T-Rexes, and this T-Rex is famous because he fought a croc, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Man, I want to be like you. You had no fear." And he's like, "Oh, I get scared all the time." And he's like, "What? But you fought a croc." And he was like, "I was scared doing it." Right? And I don't remember the full dialogue of what he said, but he said that it's okay to be afraid. It's not okay to be a coward. I think that's actually where I got that saying from. It's that those simple themes can go so far, especially for young kids, which is why I think that in youth, for those of you out there that are, getting older and maybe you're thinking about having kids, or even people who interact with kids, you need to understand how important positive impact is on their life. Right? Because kids are impressionable, and what you tell them, they're going to believe. So kids that grow up constantly being told, you should be ashamed of yourself for what you've done, that leads to them constantly being hung up on the things that they did wrong. And there's a big aspect, I'll get into it later in the episode, but there's a story that Prince Ye told in one of his videos that I think really stuck with me, and it helped me change how I treat other people. And even you can internalize the wisdom from the story, but the story is simply there's two scenarios. One is a mother and daughter walk into a store. The daughter picks up a glass bottle and she drops it, shatters on the floor, or whatever liquid juice spills everywhere. The mother walks over and she says, "Oh my God, you're such a stupid child. Why would you do that?" The second scenario, exact same thing happens. Mother, daughter walk in, drops the bottle, except in this scenario, the mother says, "That was a really stupid thing that you did." In the second scenario, they don't attribute the kid to the action. They instead said, "Yeah, that was a bad action. Don't do something like that again." but not that you are that kind of person. Because if you think about it, it has the complete adverse effect. If you say you're a stupid person, that person's going to constantly want to do stupid things. But if you tell somebody that was a stupid thing, that means that it's out of alignment with who they are. People do what they believe to be morally correct. So if you constantly mess up and people keep telling you that you're a failure, what they're effectively doing is telling you that that's the kind of things that you do. Mm-hmm. But and it isn't.
The crazy thing is, I've referenced this book about 3 or 4 episodes in a row now, but it's crazy to me because so much of business can be applied to real life. So the book, obviously, I mentioned it last episode before, but Built to Last, talking about what made visionary companies successful. And one of the biggest things in there is creating mechanisms of alignment. So pushing people to be aligned with the core values of the company. And if there's a certain product or branch of the company that doesn't align with it, you cut it off immediately, regardless of how profitable it is. So if you teach people the same way, where you show them, hey, you should align yourself with these values, cut out the misalignments, and you lead them in the right way. And funny enough, that movie that we were just talking about, The Lion King, Disney classic, right? Why is it so influential? Because Disney was really, really stuck to its core values, just like the book said. But in recent times, you see that they've strayed away a bit from those values. And that's the reason why we get not as good movies anymore.
I think it's like that nowadays movie writers are always trying to revolutionize something, which I guess makes sense. Like, they're supposed to do that. But I guess as time, it's like with Avengers, right? It's, you started off with like, okay, you have a city level threat, and then you go country level threat, and then you go, world level threat, then you go universe level threat, and then you want to go multiverse level threat. And then eventually you get to the point where it's like, bro, what are we doing? And except you can't go back down.
Yeah.
So a lot of these movie writers keep trying to top what old writers did. But I think that repetition isn't something to be afraid of. Like, I think you can remake things in a nicer way. Right? And in a different way, yeah, it could be the same principles, but in a different light. Or explaining something from a different perspective that's still similar. I don't think that people need to always be so different that you're not even yourself, right?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I just realized that that's also really like paralleled well against the current day and age, because we're always going up in the, let's say, quality of content that we consume. So if you scroll on TikTok or Instagram right now, you'll see this firsthand. Every video you see, pay attention to the little details that they put in the video to keep your attention. For example, one thing that I've learned as a content creator is that people incorporate these things called pattern interrupts. So pretty much the goal is every 3 seconds, you should have an image, a change of frame, a sound effect, something that pulls your reader's attention or the viewer's attention back into the video, right? It moves them around. It forces them to keep their eyes on the screen. So with that kind of psychological information, people make insanely good videos, like edited really, really well. But the thing is, it's constantly improving. It's constantly getting better. It's getting to the point where you need to edit a video that is an actual masterpiece just to have it go, viral. But at the same time, people value authenticity, which is why people like Sam Sulek blew up. This guy just records his workouts and puts them on YouTube. You just feel like you're sitting in a car with him and going to the gym with him. That's all it is. So there are 2 different streams of content, but in my opinion, especially when it comes to movies, they take the latter of it has to keep on getting better.
Well, that's not the latter then.
The former. They take the former.
Yeah.
Where they're always trying to get better.
I think that people nowadays get so discouraged when something's been done before, right?
Yeah.
They always think they need to be something new to be themselves, right? And I'm saying don't copy people. Like, obviously, do not copy people. You are your own person.
Yeah.
But it's not like the goal that you have has never been seen before. Don't be discouraged because somebody else has already accomplished what you want, because that never really discouraged other people. Right? You could have the same goal as somebody, but take a completely different path. And you might still end up where they ended up, but your life experiences, the impact that you've had on the planet is going to be completely different. Mm-hmm. Like, 2 people who want to start let's say, very similar companies, I would say, let's say Samsung and Apple, right? Supposing just taking the phone side, right? Both of them are creating smartphones, but both of them are going to have completely different impacts on people. you living your life in a way that might be similar to somebody else isn't going to be the same as them.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged just because somebody else has done something. Instead, try to put your own light on it. And if not, just live your life how you want to live it. Don't live it based off of everybody else. That's not going to be very fulfilling. But I think that we're definitely straying from like the topic.
Yeah, sure.
But one thing, we were talking about failure, right? And there was a quote from Luke Belmar. Surprisingly, I'm not the biggest Luke Belmar fan, but I respect him enough that he says a lot of great things. Do I think sometimes he says some stupid things? Maybe. But he does have a lot of great wisdom from apparently the books he's read, because he's talked about a lot of great books that I do want to definitely check out. But his quote is, maybe life isn't about happiness, but instead about experiencing the entire range of emotions, pain, sorrow, joy. And to neglect any one of them is to neglect life. And I think it's interesting because we all understand that you can have good without bad, but we never want to accept the bad. But I think that the bad is possibly more important than the good, because that's what allows you to feel the good, to enjoy the good, really to understand the good. So throughout life, you're going to fall so many times, but you can't let that discourage you, and you can't align yourself with your mistakes. Because when you choose to align yourself with your mistakes, you now don't give yourself the opportunity to be successful. Because anytime that you achieve anything, you're going to credit it to luck, or it was just a good day, somebody else did something, because you've aligned yourself as a failure. But you don't need to align yourself with the mistakes that you make, right? It's up to you. You either choose to align yourself with your successes or your failures.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the greatest example is David Goggins, the guy who fell 1,000 times. And even especially it becomes really clear about his story when he talks about it on Joe Rogan's podcast. He said one sentence that really stuck with me forever. And he said, I used to be this weak, insecure, always stuttering, not confident kid. And I still am. I'm still shy. I'm still introverted. I don't like to do these podcasts. I sit in my car and hype myself up for an hour before coming in to talk to you, Joe. But in order to accomplish what I did, I had to create a new persona, a guy who is indestructible. I invented Goggins, a new persona who could do anything and accomplish everything I dreamed of. So he created a persona that aligned with nothing but success, nothing but hard work and determination. And that's what allowed him to become much better. But at the same time, like you said, life is realistically all a game of perspective. Yeah. If you don't have bad things, then the good things don't seem as good. Why do we look up to people like Goggins, people who struggled so much? It's because they went through so much pain and suffering, and yet they still triumphed. That's the critical point. It's not just because they won. Most of the time, people who've had an easy life get ridiculed for being successful. Yeah. Like if your dad's a billionaire and you become a billionaire, people attribute it to, oh, he was lucky because his dad's rich.
Yeah.
That's what happens. Mm-hmm. But people who went through adversity, that's where true strength is built. And more importantly, your story has life to it, right? So to you out there, if you are struggling, and more so if you've had a difficult past, don't be upset about that. Sure, it hurts, but it's also what gives your story plot. It's what gives you all the different lessons that you needed to get better.
It gives your character depth.
Exactly. Nobody likes the bland character that is not fleshed out in a show, right? The guy who's very superficial, who just, shows up to work every day and goes home and sleeps and goes through no adversity, right? And it's really interesting because I recently had a friend who I was talking to, and he talked about how for a lot of his life, he had just lived a relatively mediocre one. Not much had happened. He was kind of just cruising through life. And then all of a sudden, all at once, everything went crazy and ballistic. He went through several insane experiences and suffered a lot. But I know he's listening. I know he's out there. And as he watches this episode, the one message I'd sent to him and everybody else who is experiencing a lot of difficult things is to understand that this is something that you will look back on in the future and maybe not be happy that it happened, but you can be grateful at least because you will understand that it taught you something.
Absolutely.
And one thing is, especially like I mentioned in the intro, relationships. Relationships end and start every day, right? People tend to regret relationships more than anything. They get stuck up on exes, on heartbreak, on, any sort of failures in their marriage. Things like that really, really suck because you built an emotional attachment to this person. And you spend all this time loving them and knowing that they were there for you. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's all ripped away from you. But one thing I'll say to someone who's going through that, ask yourself, why did it happen? At the end of the day, one of you was in the wrong. Even if it wasn't you, somebody was in the wrong. So reflect on that and understand that this is an opportunity to learn. Sure, take the time you need to grieve a little bit. I'm not saying, pretend like it didn't happen. Acknowledge your emotions, because that's also a healthy thing to do. But don't get stuck on it. Move forward and look, hey, okay, in these situations, I could have behaved a little better. And then as you move forward and work on yourself, eventually the right girl or guy will come along and you will actually be ready to have a good relationship with them. That's what people don't understand. You could be given the golden opportunity of a lifetime and mess it up because you're not prepared. So when you look at other people who are successful and you say, damn, he's lucky he got that opportunity. No, it wasn't luck. He was ready to attack that opportunity and win. The same thing must be true for you. So when you fail 1,000 times at whatever you want to achieve, learn and then use what you learned to attack the next opportunity and win. That's what you got to do instead of dwelling on the past.
Absolutely. I think acceptance is really important of the past. But a lot of people get discouraged because, you hear all these people saying, oh, just move on from the past, move on from the past, just heal from the past. The past, it can't affect you because it's in the past. But people feel discouraged because I still hurt, right? I still feel pain. Why is it not going away? The thing is, a lot of these wounds take time to heal. Mm-hmm. And you need to be able to accept that. You need to be able to understand that, hey, man, it's not going to be instant. It takes time. And that's why I'd say, whether you believe it or not, people believe in God and they say, I'm not afraid of the bad things that happen because I have faith that, God has a plan, that God is telling me that this was supposed to happen. This is all part of the plan. But for those of you that don't believe in God, I'd say believe in time. Believe that over time, these things will have a positive impact. And I'm going to read an excerpt. It's a little bit long, but it's from a Instagram account called Positivity Daily 1. I know there's a lot of positivity accounts out there, but I specifically wanted to shout them out because I took this from their Instagram page, and I really love their page. It's been popping up a lot.
We are all about, what's the word? Ethical business practices.
Yes. So I am going to clearly cite my source. And the excerpt is, sometimes we laugh when we think about the days that we cried, and those moments of pain feel so far away. And other times, we cry remembering the days we used to laugh, when everything felt perfect and we didn't know how quickly it could change. That's life. It's a mix of joy and pain, laughter and tears. But each memory, whether it hurts or makes us smile, is part of who we are. A reminder that we've lived and felt deeply. And no matter what you have to keep moving forward. And no matter what, you have to keep moving forward. Because even in the hardest moments, there's always a chance to write a new story, to create new memories.
Damn.
I sat there after reading that just in a daze. And I was like, it's so interesting because I think about my life and I see it in real time happening. Because I always think about, man, I remember when we used to all stay up late playing Overwatch or playing Fortnite. And I think about those moments and I feel so sad that they're gone. Mm-hmm. And then other times I think about the times that we cried over really stupid stuff. Obviously this was not that funny. In retrospect, I find it extremely funny. But I'm going to say when you broke your nose, I think that was absolutely horrifying in the moment. But in retrospect, how it happened was a pretty funny story.
Okay, yes. Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Right, I get the lasting pain and all that and agony.
I'm still never going to forget the fact when I walked up and looked in the mirror and my nose was just... And just the amount of blood on my face, it was a nightmare.
That was a nightmare. But in retrospect, if you really think about how that happened, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, and also I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. That's part of my lore now.
Exactly.
So, and that's the thing, right? You could certainly dwell on the past. But it's funny. For the first year after breaking my nose, I was I was very upset about it because my nose was super straight and I didn't have a bump here. But then after breaking it, it was bumpy right there where it had broken, crooked. It was the worst thing ever.
I'm going to be honest with you, I can never tell.
Yeah, but that's because you don't really pay attention to the details of someone's face, right? But and also more importantly, you are your own worst critic. You're always looking at all your flaws, right? Mm-hmm. And more importantly to me, I looked at my face every day and saw a straight nose. And then all of a sudden, it was ripped away from me by a concrete head of one of my friends. Okay, just completely crushed my nose. It was the worst experience ever.
It's funny because I mean, I guess can we give like backstory on this?
Yeah, sure. You know what? Go ahead and tell the story.
So the story goes, we are in our friend's basement, and this is when we were younger. Like definitely, I don't know how long ago was this.
This was okay.
It's had to have been like
I want to say 9 years ago now. I believe I was like 12 or something.
yeah, that's crazy to me. 9
Yeah,
years ago.
9 years
But
ago.
9 years ago, so really long time ago, we were in our friend's basement, and we were just messing around playing games, and then we invented this game called the Stupid Virus.
Now, for the record, when we say we invent, like we are playing games, we're not talking about video games. We're talking about like made up games where we're, chucking basketballs at the wall saying like, oh, this counts as a point, or, we came up with dumb games.
We really let our creativity run free. I just want to say, I think it is a shame that kids nowadays don't do this still, because we invented so many, like, Sasketball was goated.
Yeah. Combination of soccer and basketball, for the record.
What was that other one that we played?
I don't remember what it was called, but I know that. Are you talking about the one where you like run up the stairs and stuff?
Yeah,
that game was so much fun, man.
See, there were a lot of games. I don't know how to like,
and a lot of memories.
Yeah,
too.
I have no idea how we came up with that. Like, it was brilliant.
I'm telling you, the creative mind is dead because of technology. I know, it's crazy,
and it's tragic. I think that kids need to learn how to just be free and creative again, man. But anyway, the story goes, we're in the basement and we invent this game called the Stupid Virus. Now, the goal of Stupid Virus is one person has a ball, and we turn off all the lights in the basement. So it is pitch black. You cannot see anything. And the goal, this person has to throw a ball and hit somebody. And if you get hit, you get the Stupid Virus. Now you got to go find the ball and throw it at somebody else. So now, obviously, in retrospect, that it earned the name Stupid Virus, because that is the stupidest
thing we've ever done.
Literally makes no sense. But we were I think we were crawling on the floor so that we wouldn't, like, accidentally run into something. Anything. And then one of our friends decides, and now he's much young. He's like, how much?
I want to say, like,
he was, like, much younger than us.
5 or 6 years younger than me. I'd say he's about, like, 2 or 3 years younger than you. Yeah. But I know he was small at the time.
Yeah.
And so, like, I'm crawling on the floor, and he's standing, but, like, his standing is the same height as me crawling. And this kid just runs head first into me.
Like, he bows his head down like this and just starts running in a straight line like that. And he just, bam, head to the face. And then this guy starts screaming, and we're freaking out because the light is like the one where you have to grab it and pull it down, but it's pitch black, so we can't see anything. And we didn't have, like, phones then, so we couldn't, like, use a flashlight or anything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, just hearing the story, I can, like, almost feel my nose hurting again, bro. It was actually
so then we were all scrambling to find the light, and then we finally get it, open it, and there's just blood everywhere. It was a horrifying moment.
Yeah, and for the record, this, like, my nose actually was, like, twisted, like, that way. It's, like, sideways going, like, that way. You saw my nose. It was, like, completely
That's the thing, though. I don't even remember that much. All I remember is seeing,
okay.
like, red everywhere. And then you started screaming and running up the stairs. Or, no, you weren't even freaking out yet.
Yeah.
You just walked up the stairs, and me and Gabe were looking at each other and freaking out. We're like, oh, my God, what just happened? And then you,
like... It was the adrenaline, man, because I couldn't... Like, it's, like, instinctive. I was wailing because I knew I had been hurt badly, but I couldn't feel it because of the adrenaline. But when I looked in the bathroom mirror and I saw how much it was bleeding and how messed up it was, I was like...
Yeah,
that
was absolutely... But, okay, the point being that in the moment, horrifying memory. And for the most part, still pretty scary. It scarred this guy for a long time. But in retrospect, both of us, when we mention the story, laugh about it. Because in the end, it was pretty funny. And it still added some spice to our lives, right? It added a memory that we never would have found if we had just played it safe all the time, right? Obviously, don't go playing stupid games in the dark, right? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But enjoy your life and don't be afraid of the failures. Don't let them define you, because they're made to build you, right? They're made to show you who you can be.
Yeah.
And I think that people get caught up in defining themselves by it, because that's what the world is telling us to do. The world is telling us to align ourselves with our actions. Whatever you do is now what you have to become. But I don't think that that's how the world should work.
Yeah, for sure. And more importantly, you're going to make mistakes regardless of how hard you try to be perfect. And I think that the strongest and worst emotion anyone can feel is regret, without a doubt. And it sucks so much because you sit here in suffering because you're worried about something that has already happened and you wish that you had played it differently. But not only does it create suffering now, it creates suffering in the future because instead of focusing on how you can be better for the future, you sit here and dwell on the fact that you messed up in the past. So learning to let go of negative experiences is important. Learn from them, of course. Analyze your mistakes and see what you can do better. But don't sit here and say, damn it, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? Oh my God, I'm the worst person ever. God, I'm going to be a failure for the rest of my life. I think that all of us have had moments where you sat there and dwelled on something way longer than you should have. Way longer. All because it's embarrassing or because it hurt or because you were sad or angry or whatever negative emotion this experience incited in you. You feel it and you sit there and you think about it. And I've told the story several times, but in my high school career, I had several regrets that kept me up at night, especially in my senior year, going into grade 12. I sat there at night all by myself, staring at the ceiling, regretting some of the things I'd done. And as I went to university, that's when I was like, you know what? What's done is done, right? It's time to move on. And once I learned that, I never, ever experienced that kind of a regret again because I live every day now trying my best not to. And more importantly, when I do make a mistake, I don't dwell on it too long. I'd say I'm probably the most relaxed person when it comes to making mistakes. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. You seem like you're disagreeing.
Well, no. I think that there are, like, for the most part, yeah. But I think there are certain times where you kind of freak out.
About making a mistake?
Yeah.
Like,
In your
example?
wallet.
Okay, yeah, true.
Check.
Very true. However,
I think that it's when you make the mistakes that you find are extremely out of line with, like, who you are. Because, like, for example, you consider yourself to be this kind of guy that's not going to lose his stuff, that takes care of the important stuff. So when something happens that doesn't align with your belief of yourself, you kind of freak out. And I think everybody does this because they're like, oh my God, I've just challenged my morals as a human being. Right? That's why the heaviest burdens are the ones that don't align with who you are. Right? Or heaviest mistakes are the ones when you make a mistake that doesn't align with who you are.
Yeah.
Because it makes you question your
Identity.
Exactly. So I'd say step number 1 to move on from the past is to accept it and understand who you are. I think that's the key to everything in life. You know, I'd say that people are extremely influenced by everything around them when they don't know who they are. People say, you know, you're the product of the 5 people around you. And I'd say you are only the product of the 5 people around you when you don't know who you are. And for most people, that takes a lot of time. For most people, it takes a very long time to figure out who you are. But once you do, that person who's truly figured his life out, no matter who he hangs around, no matter who or what external conflict there is, he will not, or they will not falter. They will not misstep. They will not change their values because they are sure of themselves. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be sure of yourself like that. You may be a 15-year-old watching this video. I'm telling you, you're not going to figure your life out that quick. I haven't figured my life out that quick. I may have made more steps in my life than I wouldn't have if I would have if I never thought about these things. But you need to become extremely set in who you are. You need to understand that these are the values that I want to live by. This is the kind of person I want to be. And that idea, this is the person I want to be, is when you find out who you are. It's interesting because, like, I was sitting there thinking about it and I was like, who are you, right? If you couldn't use your name, age, race, gender, culture, you know, country that you're from, that kind of stuff, what really defines you as a person? And I sat there thinking about it. How would I actually describe myself? If somebody came up to me and asked me that question, what would I say? And, you know, at first I was completely stumped. And then I was on a run. I was running outside once and I thought about this. And I was like, if I had to truly say who I am, I'd say I'm a person who's trying to be who I want to be. And it sounds like a mouthful.
And more
But-
importantly, rather ambiguous.
Very ambiguous. But if you understand it from my perspective, I know who I want to be. Who do I want to be? I want to be this kind person who takes care of the people around you, takes care of the people around them, who is kind to everybody he comes across, who puts out good positivity into the world. That's the kind of person that I want to be. Now, who am I? I'm somebody who's trying to catch up to that guy. That's who I am. And that idea of trying to change is what's made my life so much better. But if you're constantly stuck in, like, I don't know who I am, so you're bouncing from person to person trying to find an identity, that's when life is the hardest. And that's when
yeah.
failure hits you the hardest. Because you're not sure of whether or not this mistake you made is you. And it leads me to a very important point, and it's understanding the difference between guilt and shame. I watched this video on, dealing with your past and your regrets and shame and guilt. But it was by a doctor, and I don't remember his name on YouTube. I'll find it and we'll pop it up here. But what he said is, these are not like Webster Merriam dictionary definitions. He said these are the therapeutic definitions of the words. Guilt is an acute feeling of regret or dissatisfaction or unhappiness with something we've done in the past. So it's a feeling. Shame, on the other hand, is what happens when guilt is grafted onto our identity. We align our guilt with who we are, and we begin to believe we are that kind of a person. That's why shame is so scary. Because once you begin to graft these failures onto your person, they stick with you. That's why I believe that so many people struggle with the past, is because they begin to connect themselves with the mistakes of their past. But you need to understand that you can evolve as a person, that your past doesn't define you. Right? I would say the biggest person is Thorfinn. Right? If you watch Vinland Saga, which I completely suggest that you do, his whole character arc is the idea that I made mistakes in the past, but I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't want to follow that life that I chose to live. Same thing with the Zuko, right? It's just a redemption arc. It's that idea that I'm not bound by my past.
And that's the best kind of story.
Absolutely.
Is where someone is misguided or lost and they find something better. And it's interesting because when you are reading that excerpt from that Positive Daily One account, it made me think of a song. And I always thought this song was brilliant and I love it so much. Not only is it a good song, but the meaning behind it is so good, especially when it comes to feelings of regret and failure in the past. And more importantly, appreciating what you have. And the song is by Passenger. Only need the light when it's burning low. Only miss the sun when it starts to snow. Only know your lover when you let her go. That song, I remember listening to that as a kid and I was mind blown. Completely hornswoggled. I remember listening to it. I'd say the first couple times I wasn't really mature enough to understand it. But then after, going on YouTube on the computer because I didn't have a phone at the time, listening to this song a bunch, I was like, that's actually a really good way of thinking about it. And if you follow your life the same, live your life by those same morals, I think you not only begin to appreciate what you have. When you lose things, you also understand that this just opens you up to a better perspective, to learn more, and more importantly, to appreciate the future. Right? At the end of the day, we always say, nothing is promised, bro. Tomorrow is not promised. We don't know. So tomorrow, when you go into it, right, and it's a decent day, let's say it's not fantastic, it's a decent day, but you look back on those terrible days that you regret or that you dwell on, and you say, well, at least it's not that day. That is exactly why it is essential to have bad experiences. Once you have them, moving forward, you can be different, right? And in terms of how do you fix your problems of dwelling on the past, there is a really good philosophy for doing so. And it's really ironic because I watched this video about it and I didn't really finish the whole video. I was intrigued by the first bit, but not really intrigued for the rest of it. But either way, he was talking about a philosophy and how people begin to lose trust in one another and the government when there is more control around them. So when a government starts to become slightly more authoritarian or become a dictatorship, for example, the civilians start to lose trust and hope in their own country. The greatest example of this is the social credit system, right? That is one thing that people don't like because they're constantly being monitored by the government because they don't trust them. Now, where is the predominant country where that is used?
Where?
You don't, what? You're
What?
telling me you don't know what country uses the social credit system?
I actually.
Do you even know what the social credit system is?
idea.
Oh my, do you live under a rock?
Yes, I think we've established this many
What
times.
are, all those memes where it's like you do a good deed, you get plus 999 credit? You've never seen those? Oh my God, are you
What are
kidding
you
me?
talking about? I've never seen that ever.
China!
Okay,
Oh my God, brother. Okay, so pretty much the social credit system is they're constantly watching you. So there's like, this is like my general understanding of it. There's cameras everywhere. Everywhere you go, like on the street, it's constantly watching you. And pretty much the point is, as you do good deeds, your social credit score goes up. But as you do bad things, it constantly goes down. Now, the thing is, it's kind of a hit or miss thing because, in my opinion, I don't like it because it's overly authoritarian.
Yeah.
They're enforcing everything on these people and putting a lot of rules on them and saying every minor mistake you make will be punished. So I don't really necessarily agree with it. But either way, the point is, like, as people get untrustworthy, the government it happens because the government tightens its grip on the people. But the funny thing is, if the government were to just let go, the people would actually trust them a lot more and be better citizens. It is the act of holding on to something tightly that makes it rebel against whoever is holding it. And the philosophy that goes against this is, I don't know how you say it, Taoism? Have you ever heard of it? It's pretty much just the philosophy of letting go, of how you don't need to control everything in life, especially because not many things are in control in your life. If you really look at the grand scheme of things, go through your day-to-day activities and tell me how many things you can really control. Can you control the weather? Hell no. Can you control the traffic? Hell no. Can you control whether your professor or your students or your colleagues or your friends are in a good mood? Hell no. You can't control anything except your own thoughts and your own reactions. So, instead of dwelling on a lot of the things that you can't control, why not let go? Why not loosen your grip on your life? We like to feel in control of everything. We think, oh, if I just overthink about these scenarios, even if I don't have any power in them, that will bring me power. But ironically, overthinking about those scenarios is what takes your power away. Because by thinking, you stop doing. And doing is the only thing that will stop you from suffering later on. So instead of trying to control everything, understand that there are things you can't control, that things that are in the past will be forgotten in the sands of time, and that you can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
Except move forward and be better today.
Completely. I think it's the idea of acceptance. I think so many people struggle with it because they think that by accepting their mistake, I actually, you know what? I don't completely understand the philosophy behind it. I think the idea, a lot of people don't want to accept their mistakes because they think that people will begin to align their mistakes with them. So, for example, sometimes when people get into like a car accident or they do something stupid, instead of saying, like, you know what, man, I'm so sorry. Like, you rear end somebody. And instead of just getting out of the car, walking up to the dude, be like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. I was distracted. It's 100% on me. They go, oh, this happened and this happened and this happened. And they come up with a million reasons as to why it's not their fault. But your life would be so much better if you just accepted, hey, man, you know what? I messed up. It's on me. Because it makes both people in the situation better. Like, I saw this video of this guy driving, and there was a bike in one lane, and he swerved over to switch lanes, and he didn't see the bike, so he almost hit the bike. Bike, like, got out in front of him, or the bike went behind him, and then he pulled out, and then the bike came up next to him. And then the guy rolled down his window. He's like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. 100% on me. I didn't even see you there. I'm really sorry about that. And, like, the thing goes, the rider, like, the biker, as he was going up, because it's from his perspective, he's like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Who the hell does this guy think he is? I'm going to smack the hell out of this guy. Like, he was really mad. And then he rolled up to the window, and the guy was just like, hey, man, it's 100% on me. I'm so sorry. I didn't even see you. And then, just like that, the biker's mood completely changed, and he was just like, oh, no worries, man. You know, thank you so much for being accepting of it. All it took was for the guy to just admit that he made a mistake. And everybody was happier. He gets to move on, and the biker gets to move on. So when you sit there and you constantly deny the fact that things happen, you're basically just prolonging the pain. Because you're going to sit there, even if you say, okay, it's not my fault because of this, you're going to sit there in your bed at night and you're not going to be able to sleep. You're going to toss and turn because in your heart, you know it's your fault. And that's a part of life. It's a part of life to make mistakes, but it's okay to make mistakes. You need to be able to accept that you make mistakes and accept that you're not going to do it again. And actually, the thing is that people fear changing a lot. So in this video that I watched, this guy provided the 5 steps of change, right? Like the 5 steps that it takes to change. The 5 stages that you go through when you're trying to become a better person and you're trying to change for the better. And it starts in pre-contemplation. Pre-contemplation is when you do not recognize there's a problem, or you do, but you're not willing to make a commitment to changing it. And you choose to stay the same because you're more afraid of changing than you are of staying the same. And again, as I go through this process, I want everybody out there to know that it's okay if you're in any of these processes. Whatever stage you're in, it's okay. You don't need to be at step number 5 like that. There's a reason that it's a process because it takes time. So when you have problems, take these steps and be like, okay, I'm going to try and go through these. But don't rush it. Because if you rush it, I think that you take the meaning away from it. And I'll explain why a bit later. And the second step is contemplation. Now, you acknowledge there's a problem and you want to do something about it. You realize that sometime in the future, you want to do something about it. But you may not be ready just yet. So you're still just thinking about it. Pretty self-explanatory. Step number 3 is preparation. And again, quite self-explanatory. I feel like most of these steps are extremely self-explanatory. But preparation is now you make a commitment to the change. You start to build a plan and you decide, I'm going to commit to myself to become a better person. Then step number 4 is action, executing your plan and creating effective change. And then step number 5 is maintenance, so maintaining the change. Now, if we reflect back to pre-contemplation and rushing the process, if you rush the process, you're going to, 1, might make a change that you don't want to make. You might change or alter something about your personality that you didn't actually want to change. It was just something in your head that you believed you wanted to change, right? Sometimes who you are is who you are. Sometimes we change good aspects about ourselves to please other people. And in the end, that's going to cause us so much more harm. And the idea is that if you rush through these steps, maintenance will never work. If you go through all these steps perfectly, but you didn't really change for the better, maintenance will never work. Because at the end of the day, you will never get rid of that fear of change. Because guess what? You didn't actually want to. There's a quote that change only happens when it's scarier to stay the same than it is to change. And I was really that hit me to my core. I don't know why I pointed at my head. Hit me to my core. Because I realized that, man, all these times that we try to change ourselves willy-nilly like that, it's not that simple. Because at the moment, we may realize what we're doing is wrong, but we're stuck in this idea of pre-contemplation. And it's going to take time. I feel so many people nowadays are preaching this idea, you don't have any time, you need to succeed right now, you don't have time. But that idea is what leads to self-destruction. I'll tell you, there are successful people that have done it, right? There are people that have done it in no time. David Goggins, for example, right? This guy, obviously, I think he actually applies to this scenario because if you really think about it, the amount of time he spent behind the scenes thinking about his problem is what led him to be able to make that effective change. But for example, his weight loss journey, 3 months, he lost
106 pounds.
106 pounds. That is abnormal, right? So don't be like, okay, I didn't lose 106 pounds in 3 months, so I'm not going to be great. No, even if you lost 10 pounds in 3 months, even if I'd say 50, 10, 5, right? You're still making effective change. It's just not at the same rate as somebody else. That's why I think that this toxic world where we had to believe that everybody has to achieve things in the same duration of time is foolish. Don't listen to everybody else telling you when you should achieve your goals, right? Instead, do the steps, do them right, and be content with the fact that maybe it won't happen as fast as somebody else, but believe in yourself and don't give up, right? Move on and change yourself because you know it's the right thing to do, not because other people are telling you that it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and like we always say, just because somebody else chooses to do it the quick way doesn't mean that it should stop you from doing things the right way, right? That clip of Robin, that's what I always bring up, and that's something I love to live by because I'd say there are a lot of underhanded things you can do, especially with content creation, to blow up. I could make stupid videos, just absolutely brain rot to the max. Just create stuff that people will look at and just laugh for 3 seconds and then forget about by tomorrow. I could do that. But I think I would rather enjoy the slow growth of building a channel that people love. People look to for inspiration. People look to for help. That is why I would do this. Not because I want to be famous, not because I want to make money, not because I want everybody to know my name. That's not why I do this. So just because there are other people out there who do things the way they do doesn't mean that I need to do it that way, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you look at people like, for example, I don't want to say it, the girl with the cowboy that everybody knows from the one...
Haley Welch.
The fact you know her name is crazy. I did not know that.
I mean, do you live under a rock, right? We live under different rocks, I think.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But either way, that she got super famous off of saying one phrase on an interview, right? And then just rode that wave. And to be honest, props to her for that. I'd say that capitalizing on an opportunity like that is very impressive.
Yeah.
That's one thing I will not take away from her. She was very smart about the way she did things. She blew up off of one clip. A lot of people who blow up off clips like that, where it's not their channel, don't really step into the limelight and take that opportunity.
The thing is, though, she is getting a lot of hate online. For
Really?
That kind of stuff.
Okay.
But also, to her credit, like, on the second or third episode of her podcast, she was number 3 on Spotify charts.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well,
Only below Rogan and one more. So,
hey, I mean,
like,
props to her.
Complete
respect where respect is
Absolutely.
due, for sure. And while I may, say it's cringe and certain things are off about her, that doesn't mean I discredit her for her success. That's actually very impressive, and that's one thing I will say. But if that was me in that situation, I don't know if I would start a podcast based on that, right? I started this podcast because of what I enjoy and what I want to push out to the world.
Absolutely.
So don't do what is popular or what is trending. Just do what you love. And the funny thing is, by doing what you love, you attract the people you want to reach in the first place.
Yeah.
If you do something artificial, you attract everyone. What is the point in pleasing a giant crowd of people when half of them don't care? I would rather have that half or that third or that quarter, whatever it is, amount of people who actually care about what I put out. I would rather have them enjoy my content and make their lives better than have 100,000 people who listen to me and do nothing about it. Mm-hmm. That's the truth, right? And there's really no point in sitting here and having millions of subscribers if none of them do anything with their life. Mm-hmm. Sure, maybe your job is to just make people laugh, right? I'd say Kai Cenat is a great example of that. He makes hundreds of millions of people laugh every single day. Sure, that's fine. If that's his mission, go for it.
Right, that's him doing what he loves.
Exactly.
And enjoying that. Right?
And the thing is, I might not agree with a lot of the things that his fans do, because I think a lot of them are insane monkeys. But okay, that is not a racial term. That is a erratic monkey brain. That's what I'm saying, okay? Did that sound better? I don't think it did.
That sounded really
okay.
bad either way.
Point is, a lot of people that, like, for example, do you remember that one time where he went out in, like, New York or something saying he was going to give out, like, PlayStations, and then thousands of people swarmed the streets and it was a whole situation and, like, the police got involved?
No.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
I'm telling you, this guy lives under the biggest rock known to
What is
mankind.
happening?
It's crazy.
Man? I mean, I feel like
That was a long time ago, too.
Like,
that
I
wasn't
might have
recent.
heard something about it, but like I wouldn't.
Well, either way, I would say that is not something I would want to risk happening with my fans if I got famous. So I would rather push out positivity. And at the same time, he does crazy things and really innovative things too. For example, playing basketball against a bunch of, 12-year-olds. That's crazy to me. It's funny, it's crazy, and it's out there, but he put in a lot of effort into it and it really succeeded, I'd say, right? Look at how huge scale it is.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if that's not something you're really interested in or something that you stand by, there's no point in doing it.
I think that one thing you have to realize as well is that what you're doing now is going to become your past, right? And you're going to reflect on it. The past is part of you, right? Whether you want it to be. I mean, I know the idea is to let go, to not drag it with you, but to be able to reflect on it and be like, yeah, you know what? That it was a moment in my life. So if you spend a lot of your time doing things that don't align with who you are, when you begin to reflect on your life, it's going to be harder to see the positive, right? Because I'd say with the stupid virus, for example, right? Going back to this story, yeah, it was a terrible memory, but I think it aligned with who we are, who we were. We were stupid kids who enjoyed creativity and making a fun game. But had we just sat down and played Xbox, yeah, you wouldn't have got hurt. but we never would have had a crazy story to tell.
And for the record, the stupid virus and me breaking my nose did not stop us from playing dumb games as soon as I came back.
Exactly. The
We
second
still
this guy
played-
got back, we went right back to doing all this stuff.
We just kept the lights on this time.
Yeah.
Like sensible people.
Like-
So we learned.
We did learn. That's important. Learn from your mistakes. But the idea is that, like, for example, with all these people that are, getting famous off of streaming and that kind of stuff, is that most of them, I'd say, hopefully, are doing the things that they love. And when they go and they pass away, they're going to reflect on their life and be like, you know what? I'm glad about what I did. But some people who just do it all for money and don't really enjoy it, when they pass away, they look back, I made $1 million, but I didn't create effective change in the world. I didn't be the person I wanted to be. I didn't make other people smile. Hell, I didn't even smile myself. Was it really worth it? Now, I don't suggest anybody go out there, go end their life regretting things. Never regret things. But accept the mistakes that you've made in the past and understand that right now you need to do the things that you want to do. And quickly, as this video comes to an end, I did want to say one more video that I saw. And I think it's a simple concept, but it's very well put. It's a guy in this box, okay? And at the end, there's a doorway. It's an open doorway. And attached to his back is a string. When he walks forward, the string is connected to a pulley system. And when he walks, it pulls a door up. So when he walks forward, it's open here, but when he walks forward, the door comes up, right? Because of this string that's attached to his back. And the quote is simply, "You cannot step into the future if you refuse to let go of the past." And it was such a beautiful visualization because it's so simple. But it's the idea that baggage is all that's holding you back. That the door is open. Every locked door in your mind is open. Every opportunity is open. The only thing that's stopping you is the fact that you're not willing to let go of the mistakes that you've made. Accept your mistakes and move on from them.
100%. And the last thing that I will say is, have you heard of a show called Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
Wow, really? I didn't expect that. But for those of you that don't know, Ted Lasso is a sitcom, okay? And in this show, I saw a clip of this one scene. And he's asking, I think, a kid. He said, "What is the happiest animal on earth?" The kid says, "I have no idea." And then Ted says, "A goldfish."
Yeah.
You want to know why? Because he has a 10-second memory. So the goldfish doesn't dwell on its past. It doesn't dwell on the mistakes it just made. Oh, I ran headfirst into the glass. All right, I'm not going to do that again. Oh, forgot about it already. I'm going to keep swimming and live my life. I'm not saying be a goldfish and just forget about everything. But I will say have that adaptability and, more importantly, the ability to move on from the past. Look at me. I can't even stop smiling. And all I've done this episode is talk about how I shattered my nose and had a crooked nose for several years. Don't let those things define you and learn to move on, man. At the end of the day, we're all living life. We all have a number of years to live. Why live them with regret? Why live them being upset? Be happy. Smile. Learn and grow.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the very end of episode 41. But before you go, as you guys know, you know the drill. It's time for Quote
Of
the
Week.
Herm.
Quote of the week. When things start to fall apart in your life, you feel as if your whole world is crumbling. But actually, it's your fixed identity that's crumbling. And that's cause for celebration. And this quote is from someone named Pema Chodron, an American nun, okay? And I was shocked when I heard this quote because I really thought, man, when you sit there and you go through these negative experiences, it always seems like everything is crashing and burning around you. But in reality, it's just like a caterpillar who's in a cocoon. It's very uncomfortable being crammed in there. But at the end of it, you're going to morph into a beautiful butterfly. The point is, things may seem uncomfortable, disastrous, chaotic even, but that is just your past dying so that you can be reborn as somebody new and better.
Thank you guys so much again for sticking around to the very end of episode 41 of the Brighter Horizons podcast. I hope you take away the fact that it's important to let go of the past. Learn from it and move on. That the past cannot harm you. It only harms you if you choose to hold on to its weight. And with that, make sure you live a positive life, y'all. Peace out.